for Jurgen Klinsmann, his 96th game in charge of the team. Only Bruce Arena has more than that. It's a 5-year plus reign, and this is his team tonight. 6 changes from the side which beat Cuba on Friday. Keeper William Yarbrough, based in Mexico, gets the first start. Julian Green, another chance after his goal in Havana, and Beasler and Gonzalez starting at the back for the first time since the World Cup.
And keep an eye on that relationship of the 3 midfielders in front of those 2 center backs. Perry Kitchen will sit and hold. Look at that relationship between Kleshin and Bradley going forward. One of them has to be underneath Josie Altidore at all times.
As for New Zealand, they've been playing pretty well. They pushed Mexico quite hard the other night. There's the man in charge, Anthony Hudson, son of a great player for Stoke, Chelsea and England, Alan Hudson. Here's his team, 3 players to pick out. The West Ham defender, Winston Reid, their number 2 at the back. Marco Rojas, number 6 in midfield, scored against Mexico, looked good. And Chris Wood, the leading scorer for Leeds United in the English Championship, who might be dangerous. What else to watch out for? Well, here's our sideline reporter tonight, Katie Witham.
A lot of interesting stories to follow, but none other than Perry Kitchen. After passing up a maximum player contract extension from DC United in the offseason at the encouragement of Jurgen Klinsmann to get overseas and play, he now finds himself in the starting 11 for the U.S. at his old stomping grounds right here at RFK Stadium. Now, Kitchen said that in this October camp, he's really focused on watching and learning from Michael Bradley, specifically trying to emulate his composure on the ball in certain situations. Ian Taylor, without Kyle Beckerman in camp, he has an opportunity today to showcase just that, getting the nod right next to Michael Bradley.
Thanks, Katie. It was a lovely quote from Jurgen Klinsmann about Perry Kitchen today. He said he's a modest, humble guy who is very, very proud just to be with us. And the US getting us underway. They've won 10 of their last 13 matches, the US. Haven't played New Zealand since 2003, so long ago that Taylor Twellman was in the team.
That was a long time ago, Ian.
You were booked as well.
Yeah. Appreciate that. 18 seconds into the game and you already throw me under the bus. Tonight's going to be fun, huh?
And there might be more. Here's the New Zealanders, and Chris Wood getting the nod on. They'll have to watch him. This US defence is interesting because it's got a little bit of a makeshift look about it. Beasler's had a few problems. He's in maybe a little bit more of a difficult period in his career, so he's there alongside Omar Gonzalez. Gonzalez has started only 2 of the last 20 US games. And he gets, well, he tries to win that header, but he's beaten by Wood, who's going to get the shot away. It's a good one. The keeper, Yarbrough, drops it. His first involvement starting for the US, and that was nearly a horrible one. The flag's up in the end.
And this is a matchup to watch tonight. Chris Wood, he's been in great form for New Zealand since the last World Cup qualifying cycle. He has scored over 50% of New Zealand's goals. Big, strong target player, good with his back to goal. Easily knocking off Omar Gonzalez. Good turn there. Yarbrough needs to do better with that initial shot. Luckily for Yarbrough in the United States, Patterson was offside.
When the ball came back off the goalkeeper. So that's a nasty moment for Yarbrough. Not exactly what you're looking for. Of course, the usual numbers 1 and 2. Brad Guzan, Tim Howard, not called up for this camp. So they're just having a look at some of the other goalkeepers around, and I think in the second half we're going to see David Bingham of San Jose Earthquakes get his chance. We saw Ethan Horvath against Cuba. He did pretty well, kept a clean sheet. Well, a scare right at the start. I think New Zealand, I was talking to some of their people earlier on today, Taylor, they're right up for this. They see this as a big, big game ahead of their final stage of World Cup qualification.
Well, keep in mind as well, New Zealand's in the Confed Cup. So they've got preparation for a World Cup qualifying cycle. They're in Confederations Cup next summer, so there's a lot to play for New Zealand. It's also, they surprised, I think, Mexico a little bit and the United States flying back from Havana. This is a different test completely for the United States dealing with New Zealand as opposed to Cuba Friday.
Yeah, that's a good point, Taylor. They have made it to the Confederations Cup by being the champions of Oceania. Gonzalez with the ball for the US, and then Orozco helping it forward. Orozco, who was in Jurgen Klinsmann's very first selection back in 2011. The only other survivor from that 11 out there today is Michael Bradley, predictably enough. Acosta playing it wide, the Dallas player. playing at left back tonight. Jurgen Klinsmann seems to think that's his role for the national team, even though he plays elsewhere for Dallas, who are going so well in the Major League Soccer. Beasler laying it forward towards Julian Green. Interesting to see how he plays tonight. He was excellent against Cuba. Bradley's ball is aimed towards Altidore. It's too far ahead of him.
And that's one of the subjects of my Continental Tire Analyst Corner. A couple things to watch, particularly in this first half. Obviously, Julian Green coming off that performance against Cuba. Can he have another performance tonight against a better opponent on a better field, have some consistency? And then also Matt Beasler, Omar Gonzalez. We haven't seen them since Belgium and Brazil. I think a big question for Mexico, does Michael Bradley play as a number 6? Does Jurgen Klinsmann play 2 defensive midfielders, a 4-2-3-1 type of formation? If he does that, Jeff Cameron may need to play in the midfield. Well, then who's the center back next to John Brooks? A couple things to watch tonight.
Not the greatest start from the US. Kleshchin giving the ball away in midfield. Here's McGlinchey. There's the number 8. And is an automatic pick for New Zealand, who normally play against the likes of New Caledonia, Fiji, Vanuatu in their part of the world. They have a pretty long and tortuous campaign. Even if they win, they have to play one of the South American teams in a playoff to get there. Not easy. Wood doesn't get to the header. Patterson tried to. Beasler came in to win it for the US. Roscoe's early ball easily cut out. Patterson, who's on the books of Ipswich Town in the Championship, gets the return ball. One or two questions being asked by this eager New Zealand side early on. Durante trying to forge his way through it from the back. It's one of a couple of changes they've made from the Mexico game, but it's basically the same outfit.
It's been a sloppy start here, 5 minutes in here from the United States. Credit to New Zealand being on their front foot, putting the back four of the United States under some real pressure here.
Wood is a physical presence. He was top scorer for Leeds last season, and he's already got 5 in 11 games in the Championship this time around. He's been around in England, played in the Premier League with West Bromwich Albion notably. Slow start from the US, more defending to do here. Altidore back helping out his defence. Michael McGlinchey in again. And that'll make Yarbrough feel a bit better as he clings onto it. A Mexican goalkeeper, or Mexican based anyway, with Club Leon. Beasler spreading it wide to Michael Orozco, whose great moment in a US shirt was getting the winner in the Azteca a while back, amazingly. One of a few good away wins Jurgen Klinsmann has had during his time in charge, winning in Italy, the Netherlands, Germany, the Czech Republic, Bosnia. Altidore. Bradley looking to chip one in behind. Winston Reid just letting it run. I'm amazed to see that Reid has only won 20 caps for New Zealand. He's been around, it seems, forever. He was in their 2010 World Cup squad. He scored at that World Cup, but he's rarely been available for them.
There's also part of that young part of his career, and remember where he got his Danish citizenship and he didn't know if he was going to play for Denmark.
Yeah, he was based there,
right,
brought up there. Anyway, he's here tonight, and that's good news for New Zealand, and it'll be a test for Josie Altidore up against him.
Well, we've seen New Zealand early on. There's no secret. They're going to play it forward, try to play off of Chris Wood, have Patterson, McGlinchey, and Rojas run off of that ball, and so far it's caused a little bit of an issue because you're bypassing Michael Bradley and Perry Kitchen and then having to deal with those second runs. It's been a little bit of an issue for the United States so far.
A lot of players forward, including Winston Reid, who's good in the air. Yarborough under a bit of pressure, grabs it at the second attempt, or tried to, and it's smuggled behind in the end. The flag's up as well on the far side, but again, it was an uncertain moment for Yarborough, who thinks he was fouled and is telling the referee exactly that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure he's calling offside here. I actually think he's calling a handball. Yeah, that ball hits Boxall in the right arm right here. Yep. And the assistant referee immediately raised his flag. That was a good spot from the assistant referee on the other side. But already early on this first half, 2 nervous touches from Yarborough.
Michael Boxall, the player who did handle the ball there, tweeting yesterday, "I'm not sure which is older, the White House or RFK Stadium." That got a bit of a response, I can tell you. We checked, it is the White House. This is the stadium, by the way, the US have played in more than any other, the 24th time they've played here. It might be one of the last times as well, because there are plans for a new stadium. Beasler aimed towards Orozco. Michael Bradley captaining the side tonight, as he has been in recent months. Acosta, only 21, the left back. Might be one for the future. There'd certainly be no calling what the 23 for the World Cup, should the US make it, would be at this point. Bound to be some people making a late run. Got to qualify first. Reid to lay it forward up to Wood. Playing with wing backs here, New Zealand. 3 at the back, 3 in central midfield, 2 wing backs, which is what they did against Mexico. Wood. Beasler to get it away, but the US have been on the back foot here.
And a lot of it, Ian, is just difficulty when they win possession. Where's their outlet? Is it Josie Altidore up front, or can they find the feet of Sasha Kleshten? New Zealand's made it very difficult to play into the feet of Kleshten or Josie Altidore so far, and there's been very few touches from Julian Green and DeAndre Yedlin.
Again, the ball is not cleared. Colby now, the left wing back of New Zealand. It's not a great cross, but it was missed by Gonzalez. Laid forward by Liam Graham, only his second cap, and his first one was a good one, his debut against the Mexicans. Now then, Yedlin coming in off the right and almost getting in behind there. They couldn't quite find him. Here he is again now. DeAndre Yedlin trying to feed Altidore.
It's a great run, though, from DeAndre Yedlin. The timing of that run, because he sees the ball played into the feet of Sasha Kleshten, and immediately when Kleshten turns, Yedlin has to time that run perfectly, and that's where he's got to be a little bit more free with his runs. Now in a different role with Michael Orozco behind him, Yedlin's got to be a little bit more, I think, risk-taking with his runs. And if Josie Altidore wants to play with his back to goal, someone's got to stretch the back line in New Zealand tonight. That has to be DeAndre Yedlin.
And he's been put further forward, and it's happened a few times before because of his extra pace. He's looking for a flyer, isn't he?
I also think when push comes to shove, I think Jurgen Klinsmann still thinks DeAndre Yedlin is a little bit of a liability defensively.
That might also be part of the thinking. Here is Omar Gonzalez, now playing in Mexico for Pachuca. One back by McGlinchey, player with some Scottish blood, played in Scotland for Motherwell for a bit. Handball by Graham. New Zealand do hold one World Cup in their beloved rugby union, the, well, fearsome All Blacks. That sport very much king in New Zealand. Here's Sasha Klestjan. Acosta to Altidore. Acosta again with the cross in. Well defended by New Zealand. That was the most coherent attack yet from the US. They're showing one or two signs of just starting to settle. It's taken a while. Klestjan. It's cut out by Durante. Now Kip Colby. He's got Rojas to his left. Haven't seen too much of him so far, but he looked good against Mexico and scored. That's him intercepting the ball now. He's invited the free kick and Orozco obliged. The US unbeaten in their last 9 matches in this stadium, going back to the last time they ever lost a home qualifier in the World Cup against Honduras in 2001. Wood to play it wide to Liam Graham. Aimed towards Patterson, and Orozco did enough.
He did just enough because Patterson's running off that back shoulder of Chris Wood, and Orozco has to cover Omar Gonzalez and Matt Besler. And the one thing with Omar Gonzalez throughout his entire career is when the ball goes wide, he has that split second where he gets caught ball watching. And when you do that against a guy like Chris Wood, then it allows the second forward or even the third attacker coming out of the midfield to find that space. That was great recognition from Michael Orozco.
The long throw coming in from Michael Boxall here. Bouncing around dangerously. Bradley was alert enough to pick up that second ball and get it away. New Zealand have made it to the World Cup finals on 2 occasions. 1982 when they lost every game, and in 2010 they drew all 3 and hold the distinction of being the only unbeaten team at the 2010 World Cup. Defending to do here, because here's Altidore trying to line up the shot. It's a good block by Winston Reid. Picked up by Lewis. Now Patterson towards Wood. Didn't quite get the angle for the pass right, but those two seem to have quite a good chemistry.
Game's opened up a little bit here, Ian. And I think part of that is New Zealand's setup. When you look at it, you're saying, okay, they've got 2 wing backs. They're going to sit in, defend, and look for the counter. But where they've been very strong tonight is playing into the feet of their number 9 and then getting 3, 4, 5 runners around them. The game's been open up and they're getting after the United States back line, and we saw that Saturday night against Mexico. Good performance. Surprising for me.
I thought they might do quite well having seen them against the Mexicans. Here's Rojas.
Yeah, I thought the performance against Mexico was the surprising one, because I just felt after that playoff, you know, Mexico would have their way. Josie Altidore's got to be cleaner with his first couple touches tonight.
Lewis to Wood, went for the return ball. There's a bit of a swagger about New Zealand's play. They are only ranked number 88 in the world, but that may be a ranking that doesn't really flatter them. US, by the way, at the moment at 22 on the FIFA list, which sometimes needs to be taken with a bit of a pinch of salt. Sometimes a cellarful. Play by Boxall. Durante with the long ball forward towards Wood. Well watched by Gonzalez. Bradley. Altidore got a bit lucky with his layoff there. It did end up in the path of another American player. Here's Green coming off the side. We haven't seen too much of him. He was probably the US's best player in Havana. Klestjan is winning his 50th cap for the US. He's made a bit of a comeback after his exploits in Major League Soccer this year, where he is the leader in terms of assists for goals. McGlinchey. Good contest so far. Good shout by the goalkeeper there. Beasler let it run because of that. Here's Perry Kitchen. His second start for the US, the player who plays for Hearts in Scotland. Referee, incidentally, tonight, Juan Carlos Guerra from Guatemala. Yedlin. Not quite accurate enough. Kleshchen. Lovely feet from Kleshchen. Beautiful ball. Orozco getting it in there. Altidore was waiting to pull the trigger.
And I just want to show you what New Zealand's trying to do tonight. Is that obviously you're playing through the midfield. Sasha Kleshchen's trying to play forward. Now watch, they're going to play very direct, play off of Chris Wood. Now the question for me is, where's Perry Kitchen, Michael Bradley, and Sasha Kleshchen? So immediately when that ball turns over, you can't have a simple ball played into number 9 and then he lays it off and you're going the other way. Right now there's just confusion with Perry Kitchen and Michael Bradley of who needs to be in front of the back four and who needs to track the midfield's coming out of the midfield for New Zealand.
Six of the starters against Cuba gone back to their clubs. Brooks, Cameron, Johnson, Wood, Pulisic, and the goalkeeper Ethan Horvath. So this is something of an experimental side, I think it's fair to say. Altidore penalised. Not happy. Soon be up to 100 caps, Josie Altidore, and only 16 other players have done that in US history. Rojas loves to drive from midfield. Rojas, Wood trying to turn there and hit that with his left foot, didn't quite work out, but you can see the threat. A bit of a knock for DeAndre Yedlin. It's been an amazing story, really. It wasn't long ago he was at the University of Akron, Ohio, Seattle Sounders, World Cup, Spurs, Sunderland, now Newcastle United.
42nd cap
already.
And he's the perfect reason why assessing a 23-man roster right now for a World Cup is almost pointless. Because you and I were doing that before Brazil. Yedlin comes out of nowhere. Matt Beasler starts at Azteca. Julian Green comes out of nowhere. A lot can happen in years' time, let alone 6 months.
There might be one or two you haven't heard of yet coming onto the scene. Jurgen Klinsmann will hope so. There were a few moans because the US wanted to play Ghana tonight, their old World Cup adversaries. That couldn't happen because of FIFA regulations. So it's New Zealand instead, but it's a proper contest. There's a push in the back by McGlinchey. Basically, Jurgen Klinsmann wants more games against the likes of Germany, Spain, Netherlands, England, Brazil, Argentina, and a few less against the CONCACAF teams, doesn't he?
Well, and that's difficult because right now CONMEBOL, right now UEFA, I mean, you look at it, Europe and South America, they're in the thick of things. So how is he going to find those games before Russia?
It's an issue. Orozco. To nobody in particular, in truth, that ball. Clayton Lewis. Graham trying to pick up Patterson, who's not in the first team at Ipswich Town. He plays in the underage teams and the reserves. Not really broken through as yet. He's just got a one-year contract, but he's in New Zealand's side here. I don't think Reed really wanted it there, and he was clever enough to get a free kick. I think he used all his experience there, the West Ham man.
But that's where I'm a little surprised tonight that we haven't seen the United States when the back three of New Zealand, particularly the three center backs, want to knock it around. Why not high press?
Yep.
We've seen very little pressure from the United States on New Zealand, particularly when they're trying to knock it around. And I think you have to give New Zealand a little bit of credit because they're knocking it over the top of the midfield of the United States and then playing for second balls. They've won the second balls more often than not than the United States time.
Colvey back to McGlinchey. Busy little presence in the midfield. Now Kip Colvey. Held up well by Patterson, who's still a teenager. It's a young squad they brought here. New Zealand, 10 of the players, 23 or under in the whole of the squad. Let's go back to our touchline reporter, Katie Witham.
Taylor, you were just talking to Ian about not seeing the U.S. press that New Zealand back line. That's exactly what Jurgen Klinsmann has been yelling to his team down here on the sideline. Not only does he want to see more pressure, them pushing up the field, but also a sense of urgency, quicker passes all around.
Yeah, I think the lack of urgency, Katie's been a little surprising tonight. And I think part of that was the travel schedule and going down to Cuba and that kind of game that they had to play on Friday. But the reality is I thought I would see an exciting team on the front foot tonight. We haven't seen it 25 minutes in.
They've had a fair bit of defending to do, and part of the reason for that is the way New Zealand are playing is Bradley. Gonzalez, whose trip to Cuba included teaching Cuban children multiplication tables at a school. Great bit of PR. Of course, his Spanish is good, isn't it?
That was a great story. If you haven't seen it, go to ussoccer.com. Great story about those 4 or 5 U.S. players walking around in Havana, walking into a classroom.
Perry Kitchen, wide for Michael Orozco. It's one of those players, Orozco, who's been in and out of the squad. I remember Jurgen Klinsmann saying, I really wanted to pick him for the World Cup, but he just wasn't properly fit at the time. He'd had an injury and it was heartbreaking for him. Now Julian Green. Loves to cut inside onto that right foot, which he does, and scores! How about that? Julian Green again! Scores for the second game running, and the US lead by 1-0. Suddenly, it's all looking so much better for the much criticized Julian Green.
And against the run of play, but a big part of this is watch the flick on from Josie Altidore to Julian Green. Great 45, 60-yard run from Kellen Acosta. If Kellen Acosta does not make that run, then this second defender of New Zealand doesn't slide behind, doesn't track that run. It opens up the space inside for Julian Green. We saw it a couple times. I think this is brutal goalkeeping.
Yes.
From the New Zealand goalkeeper Marinovic, but give Julian Green a ton of credit, taking on his defender and having an impact in this game.
Had to do better than that. Marinovic, the goalkeeper, got his angles all wrong. It was a big surprise when that hit the back of the net. US will take it. Green certainly well his third goal for the USA. Remember, the first of them was at the World Cup as a substitute against Belgium in the knockout stages. Still with Bayern Munich. And there is a belief that he might break through as well eventually, even at that illustrious club.
Listen, Julian Green for the rest of his life will be remembered as the player that replaced Landon Donovan on the World Cup team. He's 21 years of age.
Here he is in possession again, Taylor. Cuts back towards Bradley Rojas just about got there in the nick of time. Kleshchin, who's done well so far. Altidore. Nice 1-2 played at Orozco. A bit of a miscue really from him, and Yedlin's challenge was illegal. ESPN's presentation of US Soccer is brought to you by EA Sports FIFA 17, in stores now, rated E for everyone. There is a feeling that Julian Green, and Jurgen Klinsmann was telling us this today, he's matured and he's suddenly just a more confident character around the team.
I joked with you yesterday in this building watching training. I said I've seen Julian Green sprint more in this training than I saw in his first 5 or 6 caps. And people forget, and I'm going back to it, he was a kid. And he had immense pressure on Julian Green replacing Landon Donovan on the World Cup roster. I think we're all naive if you write off a kid at 21 at Bayern Munich. I think you're starting to see a little bit of this player right here in these moments mature a little bit, come into his own, and have a little bit of an initiative coming into camp and showing some confidence.
Here's Bradley. Yedlin. Now Bradley again.
It's also not to say you don't treat him with kid gloves, so to speak, but you also have to be a little fair with the situation.
Yep. Young players can suddenly burst through. Their talent and quality is there. Of course, the US have discovered Borussia Dortmund's Christian Pulisic as well. He's gone back to his club now with Champions League coming up next week. That's only fair, really, the circumstances. But he's definitely one as well for the US going forward. So there are a few players now beginning to come through. We were wondering, really, there were so many young players getting tried. Not many of them were passing the auditions. Some are starting to. More defending to do, though, here. Lewis tried to find a way through. And Wood's run in the end just about blocked with the help of Beasler.
It's great defending from Matt Beasler, because the giveaway from Kellen Acosta, Matt Beasler has to react and react immediately. That's great defending. And it's been an interesting year from Matt Beasler. Only played 16 games, Ian, for Sporting Kansas City. He had a concussion early on. Peter Vermees has left him on the bench. But I asked Jurgen Klinsmann about Matt Beasler, and he said, well, with us, he's been fine.
Yeah, he said, I trust him 1,000%. Kleshchin. Nice ball that towards Altidore. Brilliant ball from Kleshchin. His thinking's good. Yedlin's got a chance here. Goalkeeper this time does much better. Marinovic to block that one. Big chance for Deandre Yedlin to get his first US goal.
Just such a good look from Sacha Kleshchin. And this is where Kleshchin, over the last 2 years with the New York Red Bulls, 31 assists. And a lot of them are off just little flicks, little first touches that open up your center forward going forward. Josie Altidore having the composure to find the third run from Deandre Yedlin. But I just love that first touch from Sacha Kleshchin. And when you see these types of conversations, every New York Red Bulls fan, Ian, has seen that conversation between Kleshchin and Bradley Wright Phillips. I think Josie Altidore likes Sacha Kleshchin playing underneath him.
He didn't even make the initial 30 for the World Cup, Kleshchin. He had that horrible game, a lot of them did, against Ukraine, and then he was out with the washing. But he's back now.
Yeah, I think when you see that type of perseverance from a player, you want to give credit. But I also give a ton of credit to Jesse Marsh in New York. I think he's put Sacha Kleshchin in a great spot to succeed. That freedom of playing almost as a second forward or that attacking midfielder. Tonight, I think 25 minutes or so, Sacha's been too all over the place. But the last 5 or 6 minutes, he's had an impact because he stayed right underneath Josie Altidore.
Here he is on the ball again now, Kleshchin. Green. Ball in by Orozco towards Green again. Did win the header against the odds. USA's only recent defeats, one to Argentina. They were thrashed in the semi-finals of the Copa America. No real shame in that. Argentina can do that to a lot of teams. And 2 defeats against Colombia. Again, part of the Copa America, one of them the 3rd, 4th place game. Clashton winning the header. Bradley, cap number 124 for Michael Bradley today. Kellen Acosta. Green, space here for Orozco. Sunday on ESPN, we've got an MLS doubleheader for you with big-time playoff implications at 3 Eastern. Toronto taking on Montreal Impact. That'll be a real grudge game. Big crowd, good atmosphere. Followed by the Portland Timbers, who need the points, the champions, playing Colorado Rapids from Providence Park. Both matches are on ESPN, also streaming live on Watch ESPN and the ESPN app. And we'll have some MLS chat for you at half-time with the push for the playoffs really underway now.
You coming with us to Montreal, or are you too busy?
I'm on the plane home tomorrow. I'd love to be in Montreal. I'd love to be in Montreal with you. I think that'll be a great game.
Well, you've probably had your car running for the last 3 hours. We could take it.
You're not getting any more juice out of that story.
neither you out of that car.
Trying to keep it quiet. Here's Beasler for the US. To Clashton, not that time.
No, but see the difference, Ian, though? You've now seen Sacha Kljestan be an option for Matt Beasler, Omar Gonzalez, and even Michael Bradley, because he's staying a little bit more central and playing in between those pockets of space of the back 4 and the defensive midfield of New Zealand. He's had a little bit more of an impact because of his positioning.
Holding lays it back to Boxall. New Zealand had been unbeaten for 18 months since before Mexico beat them at the weekend. Liam Graham trying to restore the supply line to Chris Wood, who does look as if he could be a real handful if the service is right. Durante this time, the service isn't right. Wood was 18 when they took him to the World Cup. He was the youngest member of their 2010 World Cup squad, and they used him 3 times as well from the bench, even then. In the crowd tonight, by the way, one of New Zealand's greatest ever players. You'll know him, Ryan Nelson.
Ryan Nelson.
Yep. Lives in Washington, D.C. now. Very good career in the Premier League in England before coming over here. And he looked at the New Zealand performance against Mexico and he said this team has taken a major step forward. So let's see if they build on that here. They're 1 down. Julian Green's goal. Wood looking for the flick on towards Monty Patterson. Goalkeepers come for that. He shouted, but Orozco wasn't going to take the chance because Yarborough still had a bit to do, in all honesty. Little flick on. He was hoping that Yedlin would get on the end of that. There's definitely an extra edge about things now, with the stakes about to be raised very, very high for the US. Clashton's ball in. Nearly found Graham Reed doing some good work there. Beasler. US have beaten New Zealand on the 2 occasions they've played them by an identical scoreline, by 2-1. Jovan Kirovski scored in both of the games. Little peculiarity. One of them was in the Confederations Cup in 1999. The other one when Taylor was playing 2003.
We called him Jovan when we played together.
Oh, right. Okay. called him some other things as well when you didn't square the ball to you.
Exactly.
Taylor was telling us that story before the kickoff. He should have been set up by Mr. Karofsky.
I was always open, Ian.
Patterson here. Gets another bite at it.
He's a lively player, and you're talking about he's only 19 years of age, but Patterson tonight, he's been active.
He came off the bench against Mexico and did well. Nearly equalized near the end. His shot was blocked. Gets the start this time.
He's just got a couple good first touches, and he's playing in those spaces between the fullbacks and the center backs of Beasler and Gonzalez. A few times tonight, he's caused some issues with his movement.
US's passing has begun to improve. A little bit slicker and more fluent now. Lovely work. Yedlin to Orozco, who cuts it back. Reed had seen where the fire was starting and put it out.
And Orozco's begging for what were his options, even if he did have this speed. Great combination with Yedlin going forward. But as Orozco looks up, because Josie Altidore is laying the ball off, see, in this moment here, Josie's got to be on a full sprint to get inside the 18. Few options for Orozco to play that ball. Great combination with Yedlin and Orozco, but that's where Julian Green and even Michael Bradley or Sasha Kleshin's got to get in that 18 and give Orozco an option.
Yeah, somebody attacking the near post would have been handy there, wouldn't it? Here's a corner kick meanwhile. Bradley playing it in there, and Orozco trying to get a goal. He does get the odd one. He's got 4 in a US shirt. Durante to Liam Graham. Graham plays his football in the lower half of the 3rd tier of English football for Chesterfield. Have to find the players where they can. New Zealand, the goalkeeper's playing in the German 4th division for Unterhaching. Lewis, the player, down injured. Next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, the US women's national team play the first of 2 friendlies against Switzerland. This one at Rio Tinto Stadium in Utah. As always, the match can be seen streaming live on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN. And log on to ESPNFC.com for the latest soccer news, including Jurgen Klinsmann disputes Bob Bradley's claims, Terence Boyd's miracle return to the US squad, CONCACAF to review World Cup qualifying, about which more at half-time. Taylor and I chewing over that little development.
I can't believe one of the top stories isn't England's performance today.
Knew you'd get to that. Well, it's a point away from home in World Cup qualifying and a clean sheet.
Alrighty.
0-0 with Slovenia, in case you hadn't heard, for England today, with Wayne Rooney dropped from the starting lineup. Altidore. Kitchen. He's beginning to grow into the game a little more. Perry Kitchen. About to be a few nerves, only his 2nd start ever in an American shirt, only his 5th cap all told, in fact. Green to Bradley. The US starting to get the upper hand a little. Kleshin, another good ball from him. Yedlin this time popping up on the left side. Kleshin again. And with difficulty, Reed managed to cut it off. Good noise. Was far from a sellout here tonight, of course, but the American Outlaws and the fan groups making their presence felt, and I'm sure many of them will be on their way to Russia should the US qualify again. If they did, they'd be doing it for the 8th time running.
I think many of them are worried about Columbus, Ohio before Russia.
Yeah. No surprise that the Mexicans have been taken to Columbus, Ohio again, where it always seems to be 2-0 to the US. It's a carefully chosen site, isn't it, I think?
Well, and it's a perfect site for it.
Yeah. Reed to hit that one long. After that bright start, Chris Wood not getting much of a service. Question, Altidor's not going to be able to reach that one. Of course, Josie Altidore and Winston Reed would have had 1 or 2 clashes in England during Altidore's time with Sunderland.
I think going in at halftime, Jurgen Klinsmann's going to have words with Perry Kitchen, Michael Bradley, and Sasha Klushin, getting those 3 on the same page. I'm not quite sure they've figured out their spacing, particularly on the defensive side of things. And in fairness to Michael Bradley, he's played as a lone number 6 the last couple of caps, and with Toronto, bad giveaway here.
Rojas didn't quite find Patterson. Graham, blocked by Beasler. Important block as well. New Zealand could have made more of that. Colvey plays it wide. Yarbrough elected to punch, maybe a little bit surprisingly, because it looked to me like he could have caught that. And that's half-time, with the US leading by a goal to 0. 1 or 2 shaky moments in truth for William Yarbrough making his first start, but Julian Green has come up with the goal again. We'll be back with the second half, and at half-time some interesting chat about some hot soccer issues just at the moment.